2019, we decided that it was finally time that we do a roller coaster road trip. We had ambitious plans to start, hoping to hit 7 parks in 5 days, and ride many of the legendary coasters that I've heard so much about.
The first stop on our grand adventure was Camden Park, West Virginia's only amusement park. Camden Park is home to 4 roller coasters, including the Ace landmark coaster, the Big Dipper, and one of 2 surviving pretzel dark rides known as the Haunted House. And I can tell you, while riding it, I was terrified. Camden Park has several classic flat rides, including an adult-sized whip that we both thought was a blast to ride. Other flats included gliders and a tilt-a-whirl. Camden also had a sky ride, providing a great view of the park, but the star attraction of Camden is certainly the Big Dipper, one of the few national amusement device roller coasters still in operation. This coaster treats its riders to loose buzz bars, no seatbelts, and a healthy dose of airtime, especially off that first drop. Camden is a smaller park, and it's not a place that you could spend a whole day at, but we certainly had a great time, and I cannot wait to get back and visit it again on our future road trips.
The next stop on our adventure was Carowinds. Carowinds is a Cedar Fair park on the border of North Carolina and South Carolina, and they have a great collection of coasters. There's a lot of coasters I was looking forward to riding at Carowinds, but none quite as much as Fury 325. We arrived at Carowinds shortly before the park opened. After singing the national anthem and listening to the Carowinds anthem, the park opened and we made a beeline straight for Copperhead Strike, the brand new mock multi-launch coaster that had just opened a week ago. Copperhead Strike gave us a great ride. I particularly enjoyed all the hang time it provided us during that unique JoJo roll and the slow vertical loop. After earning our credit on Copperhead Strike, we hit up Afterburn and Intimidator, and then took time to enjoy the Plants vs. Zombies interactive attraction. The Plants vs. Zombies game was a lot of fun, and I really hope Cedar Fair brings something like that to my home park of Kings Island someday soon. After taking laps on a few of the other coasters, it was time for the main event, Fury 325. And I'll tell you, I was excited about it. The line for Fury looked really long, but B&Ms are people eaters, and we very quickly made our way through the queue, and before we knew it, we were strapped into B&M's masterpiece. Fury provided us with an absolutely incredible ride. It offers the perfect mix of speed, intensity, and airtime, and it totally lived up to the very high expectations I had for it. The hype surrounding this ride is real, and it is, in my opinion, the finest all-steel roller coaster that has ever been built. Our road trip strategy on this trip was to spend the night at a hotel outside the next day's park, hitting the park when it opened, and then leaving after dinner to drive to a hotel outside the next day's park. We were having a great time at Carowinds, but around 6 o'clock it was time to hit the road for King's Dominion, so we bid farewell to Carowinds, hoping to return again sometime in the near future.
Day 3 started with us arriving at King's Dominion, and it was like stepping back into my home park of Kings Island, right down to the Eiffel Tower and the Royal Fountains. We started the day with 2 ERT rides on the park's new RMC hybrid Twisted Timbers, and like all RMCs, this ride did not disappoint. We followed our Twisted Timber ride up with a ride on Apple Zapple, the park's wild mouse, and then took time to experience the rides that are shared with our home park, like the Racer, Backlot Stunt Coaster, and Flight of Fear. We also experienced a few of King Dominion's more unique attractions, such as Avalanche, Anaconda, and the Dominator. After earning our credits on all their coasters, it was time for the second giga of our trip, the Fearsome Intimidator 305. This ride is legendary for making people gray out, and I too fell victim to its sharp right bank turn after its main drop. Intimidator 305 is completely different from the rest of the gigas I've ridden. All the other gigas have these smooth transitions from element to element, while Intimidator quickly snaps from one direction to the next, and it provides a very intense ride. It was so much fun, we immediately hopped back on for a second ride. King's Dominion was virtually empty, and we had already ridden everything in the park by noon. so we decided to leave early, hoping to add an evening visit to Hershey Park to our trip. Unfortunately, Washington, D.C. traffic had other plans for us, and we did not have enough time for Hershey. So instead, we took the opportunity to drive through the Gettysburg Civil War battlefield, and being history buffs, this unexpected detour was a great addition to our trip. We finished day 3 up in a hotel outside of Dorney Park, ready for what was to be the craziest day of our entire trip.
We started day 4 of our trip at Dorney Park. Dorney is a smaller Cedar Fair park with a lot of history. Being one of the few remaining trolley parks, Dorney has some very old rides, including Thunderhawk, a classic Woody dating back to 1924. Dorney surprised us with its very hilly terrain, and our legs were definitely sore after a few hours of walking around the park. When we arrived in the morning, the parking lot looked to be quite crowded, but it turned out to be mostly a water park crowd, and the dry park was virtually empty. We quickly scored rides on the major coasters such as Hydra and Steel Force, and then got in line for their B&M Invert Talon. Unfortunately, when we were next in line for Talon, the ride went down, and with the tight schedule we were on, we couldn't wait for the ride to reopen. We left Dorney Park without the Talon credit around noon and hit the road for Knoebels. The drive from Dorney to Knoebels was relatively short, but we quickly started to suspect that our GPS was leading us astray. We drove by farms and small towns, near covered bridges and Amish buggies. Nothing around us looked like the place where you'd expect to find an amusement park. Just when we were convinced that we were going the wrong way, we rounded a corner, and there was Knoebels, in all of its glory, with a very crowded parking lot. Knoebels is a hidden gem of a park. Walking into it was like walking back in time. You simply walk into the park, no need to pay entry. People were walking in with picnic baskets, wagons full of kids, and even dogs on leashes. The smell of delicious food filled the air, and the sights and sounds of the park were like nothing else we'd ever experienced. Knoebels has some world-class coasters, but it quickly became apparent to us that the main draw of Knoebels is the atmosphere of the park as a whole, and not just the rides. Knoebels was incredibly busy during our visit, and every coaster had an hour-plus wait to ride. We came to this park looking to ride the legendary Phoenix, but it was actually Twister that ended up being our favorite ride in the park. Don't get me wrong, the Phoenix is great, but like Knoebels itself, Twister is a hidden gem. We spent more time than we planned on spending at Knoebels, but I have no regrets. The next stop on our trip was scheduled to be visits to Del Grosso's amusement park and Lakemont Park. But since Lakemont's opening was delayed, and Del Grosso only has a wild mouse and a wacky worm, we decided to cut those stops out and stay a little bit longer at Knoebels. After we departed Knoebels, we headed directly to Pittsburgh to get to our hotel outside of Kennywood.
The final day of our trip included a very rainy Kennywood and a long drive home. The rain was unpleasant, but it actually worked out in our favor as Kennywood was essentially empty. When we planned our trip, we expected Steel Curtain and Skyrocket to be open, but unfortunately, during our visit, neither of these coasters had yet opened for the season. We were, however, able to take multiple rides on all of their other operating coasters. Kennywood is another historic park with a lot of character. It has unique attractions such as the Noah's Ark walkthrough and 3 of the most historic coasters still in operation, those being the Jackrabbit, Thunderbolt, and Racer. These coasters were a lot of fun, but you can't forget the other 2, Phantom's Revenge and Exterminator. These 2 stole the show, and we were able to take multiple rides on both. We finished our soggy day at Kennywood with a plate of potato patch fries, and then hit the road for home.
We had hoped to stop by Kings Island on our way home, as we were literally driving right past it, to complete our epic adventure with the ride on the legendary beast. But the further west we drove, the harder it rained, and by the time we passed our home park, it was obvious that it was raining too hard for the rides to be operating. Our first road trip was a great experience, and we immediately started making plans for future trips, both to experience new parks and to revisit some of our new favorites from this trip. If you enjoy riding roller coasters at your home park, you owe it to yourself to hop in a car and experience all the thrills that the other parks in your region have to offer. You will certainly be glad that you did. Until next time, ride on, coaster fans.